All right, it is time to wrap up our series on the accreditation writing process. We've done a lot already. Now we just need to wrap it up, put a bow on it, and present it. The Christian Principles Podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. But bear in mind, the views and opinions expressed here are those of the hosts and not necessarily of the Herzog Foundation. Welcome to the Christian Principles Podcast. I'm Matt George.
And I'm Mark Zockoll. I'm excited to end another series with you. This whole idea of series that we've just kind of been hitting, maybe someday we'll be more formalized about it. But for right now, we just say, hey, you know what? This sounds good for a series. We're going to do multiple ones of these. So we don't talk for 2 hours about the same thing. And then the people who tune in would drop off suddenly at like the 5-minute mark, like, this is way too long. So... Well, actually, we're going to figure out just how much our audience is willing to sit with us when the 45-minute episode we did with Dr. Pope gets reviewed. That will be an interesting marker of just how much people love us.
I would apologize for that, but it was a good episode.
It was a good conversation, and we talked about that a lot when we got started. Just how long we want these to be. I remember when we first got going, and Matthew Zockoll let me know how he felt about being too planned during the episodes. So that was a fun conversation of, there's a difference.
So now we don't plan at all.
Yeah. We come full circle.
Jump into
I don't know who I am right now. No. Who are you again?
Oh, man.
Okay. But the accreditation, documentation, presentation. I don't know if you happen to be this person at your school. I would like to think that I was good at making presentations, but I have found that there are absolutely people out there who will look at what I put together and say, there's things that we could do better.
Step it up.
We're talking about all those sorts of things today. We're talking about not only just the editing, pulling it together as you would a final draft of a paper, but also then what are you going to do to actually provide it to the team when they show up and to the organization previous to that. So let's do that. Before, though, we get into it, let's hear from the Herzog Foundation.
The Christian Principles Podcast is proud to partner with the Herzog Foundation in our mutual goal to see Christian school educators thrive, to further its mission to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education. The Herzog Foundation offers an array of programs, such as online content, up-to-date news, training and events, grants, and hands-on organizational improvement initiatives. Leaders need to head over to the Herzog Institute to find amazing training opportunities for both administration and teachers. Herzog has also become a great hub of the latest news in education through their network of podcasts, including the one provided by yours truly. What a blessing the Herzog Foundation has been. Head over to herzogfoundation.com now so you too can be strengthened by this incredible organization. That's herzogfoundation.com. Just one more thing before we get back to the episode. If Herzog has been a blessing to you and your school, would you mind sending us a message telling us how? We'd love to share that with others. All right, let's talk about the presentation.
But this is exciting, though, because you've done the self-study. At some point, I think it's 90 days out, you're supposed to be able to provide your documentation to the mothership, to the greater organization. And they're going to take time to walk through it. Now, in AACS, it's not technically everything, right, Matt?
Right. You just have a few of the bigger standards that you have to get out 90 days before. Now, granted, if you have them all done, great. But 60 days before you do need to have, or is it 30 days? I can't remember. 60, I think it's 60 days.
It's a blur.
All of them sent in.
So they all get sent in, and then the mothership takes care of sending them out to the leader of the accreditation team. However, that leader has already been in contact with you, and in your case, you knew the guy, right? You were close with him. So.
Good friend, B-Dubs.
Good old friend of the pod. Yeah. So we're starting there, And so you have sent out the digital copies of it. When the team arrives, what are we going to be handing them? Or previous to that, is there a drive? Is there a Dropbox? Is there a OneDrive where you have dumped a lot of information? What was the approach you took?
So I guess to start off, when you finish writing all of your standards, you're going to have a lot of writing. You're going to have a lot of pages of work. And we even talked about the documentation gathering, because you're going to include a lot of that documentation apart from your narrative as well. So by the time it is all said and done, like you could have either one very, very, very large document,
It'd be huge,
or what even AACS recommends, you're going to have 12 PDFs or 12 docs. We chose to use Google Docs just because it allowed multiple people to be working on it at the same time.
Sure.
It was, it just made it easy. But yeah, you're going to be thinking, because eventually you will want this printed out, but you don't want to print it out 15 times. Like,
no.
You want to print it once, for however much time you need it. So.
And this would be a good way of getting other people involved in this process who may not have even been part of the process outside of maybe one committee or something. If you have a solid editor on your staff, be that your English teacher or just someone who that's kind of what they do. I had a board member actually at my previous installment who she wrote up mortgage contracts, and she also liked to go through the paper and find the issues. So she was a great one to send issues. She was a great one to send drafts, or what I thought, were pretty good drafts to, for her review, or otherwise final drafts for her review. So we would be, it would be good of you to find somebody, it'd be good of us to find somebody who hasn't necessarily been a part of the process, because it's new eyes, and what a great opportunity for new eyes to come in to see. Now, it's a labor of love. You might want to give that person a day off to go and to actually sit through it. But that's the sort of thing that may be very, very helpful to the overall process. If you assign somebody, I'm going to give you the day off today. This is your job for the day, which was substitute if it's a teacher or whatever else for a staff member. But you are going to work through all 12 of these documents, and you're going to find the issues. But also, I don't mind hearing your voice in this. If you're going to put something in, okay, but we do need this, and I heard this reflected, said many a times, we do need this to come from one voice. Someone needs to be the totality, or present the totality as though it was from one. So we're not hearing extremely different styles of writing, standard by standard by standard, and it would be confusing and possibly just harmful for the process overall.
Yeah, that was one of the things I found, because we delegate out those standards to different people to just do the bulk foundational work, answering those subpoints. And when you sit down and you go through all 12 in one day, as you're suggesting, it does really help to be able to see, okay, we're presenting this way in standard 1. It can be echoed here in standard 6, and so on and so forth. And it just becomes more of a fluid document, start to finish. And that's
Absolutely.
really what you are after, because you don't want, when the accreditation team comes and reviews your self-study, you don't want them to be like, well, the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing, clearly, because these are two completely different things.
At times that's appropriate. At times that's appropriate. At times that's completely inappropriate. In this case, it's completely inappropriate. We want both hands in.
We want both hands.
We want both hands dancing together, folks. That's what we want. I tell you, when we have that kind of synchronous energy, that synthesis that's working through all of them, as one who's been on the teams, that also is just nice to see, standard by standard. It shows me they cared. It shows me they went and they put professionalism into this. When I can clearly tell that this was somebody who doesn't care about writing who wrote this, and this was somebody who cares tremendously about writing who wrote this, and and the two did not meet to discuss this, I have questions then about the relative strength of the entire document. Is it okay? Is now you're only strong as your weakest link. So was this a weak link? Was this a strong link? Was this person? And let's it's an academic institution. If there's a bunch of typos in this thing, We're speaking of the actual line by line editing, word by word editing.
Doesn't speak well for you.
Yeah, exactly. If you're supposed to be an academic institution, and I am having trouble reading your report, that stuff that should not be named among you.
Well, or you have the one standard that is just extremely thorough.
Yeah.
And then you have the other one that is, yes, we do that.
Yes, we do that.
Yes, we do that.
Yep, we do that too.
Yep.
We do that. Check. We're done.
Oh. So yeah.
Oh man, it'd be so easy if it was. Okay, so we've talked about the line by line editing and how to maybe make that happen. In your situation, Matt, who did that fall on ultimately?
Well, since this was our first time through it, I'm a control freak, right? So I was that one. I took the day off and I sat right here in this spot reviewing those 12 standards. And
it doesn't sound like you took the day off. It doesn't sound like you took the day off at all. It sounds like
correct. I was working.
You changed
actually,
your working location.
It was really funny because I started working earlier than I normally do on a normal day, and I was working longer because everybody was probably home by the time I closed my computer and said, "Okay, it's done." But yeah, but it was very rewarding, and that day went very quickly because. It wasn't so much, I wasn't creating. I wasn't creating anything. I was just looking through and saying, okay, this doesn't sound like the rest of it. Let me just give it a little tweak or putting the final touches on some things. But it wasn't recreation. It was just using what has already been established and just putting a cap on it.
Awesome.
The other thing I would say, you definitely want it not only to sound like you, but you kind of want it to look like you too. This sounds kind of strange, but when you print out a piece of paper that just has a bunch of words on it, you want to make it easy on the eyes. You want to be able to present it, and to me, this was. We present our manuals is another thing. You're going to have other documents that the team is going to come and look at. And I was looking at our standards, our self-study as a new additional manual. And so I kind of wanted to blend it right in with the formatting and everything else as our other documents, because then it becomes a part of us. And that's something else just to throw in there.
The aesthetics of the presentation should also be reflective of the school and the process. I mean, this is not the time to gyp yourself of the process in general. This is the time to celebrate even the minutia like that. To take these documents that you've created, to make sure that you like the header on them, to make sure that they reflect. If you're gonna put a watermark on them, put a watermark on them so that everybody knows these are yours. To make them look pretty. I first saw this in a way that I had not. My first few accreditation visits, I wasn't necessarily as focused on perhaps the details as I was later, because you're just drinking out of a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
You're like, well, dadgum, I'm not going to be able to sleep these 3 days. Like, it's not going to happen. I'm going to have to be up all night working between these to get this all written. And then it slows down your mind. It slows things slow down. You get your questions answered. You're fine. Go on accreditation team. Don't not go. This is not a commercial to not go. Make sure you go. It's valuable. It's helpful. You network. It's great. But later on, maybe, I don't know, trip 2 or 3 in or team 2 or 3 in, I was with somebody and they showed me not the school that we were accrediting, but their own school's manual and whatnot. And I thought, oh, that's beautiful. Like, you actually took the time to make these documents standardized in their header. You have your school brand all over them. The font looks like your school font. Looks like as though it could be your school font anyway. So things like that. They just go above. All right, so we talked about the editing. Let's get to the actual, what does it look like? Okay, I'm an accrediting team member. I walk into the school. What do I receive? If I list out the things that I've seen so far, I've walked into a school and I've seen 30 notebooks, 30 binders just on a table. And really, like, no, I've seen schools that have like no rhyme or reason. They're just kind of out there. There have been schools that had a shelf on the side full of binders. There was a school that gave me a football, and when I say football, one of those like those plastic folder holders, And that was all that we were given as far as, and then everything else was digital. And so we were expected to go and to pull off our standards. And if we wanted to print something, of course, use their stuff to print it, but they weren't going to do all that for us. So how did you guys approach that? How would you approach that? And what would you suggest as, you know, best practices for actually presenting to the team?
Yeah, a key element here is serving on an accreditation team, as you've already said, because I'm definitely the type of guy when I'm on the accreditation team, if they give me the digital copy, I don't really care to see it printed out, because I'm constantly jumping here, there, and everywhere, and I can do the search for a certain word, instead of having to just dig through everything. And I guess the only thing to me was when those printed out manuals are there, binders are there. The only expectation is I'm going to grab this if it's offering me something that the digital copy is not offering me. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So when we were deciding what we were going to do, the first thing, obviously we're going to save everything digitally. That's easiest for sharing. We shared it with the team, the days before, so everybody could see what the standards were. But when it came to actually having the physical copies, I wanted to make sure that it was just as easy to use as a digital copy. Maybe a little prettier, but I wanted to make it easy to use. So you split up the 12 binders into the 12 standards. And, we already talked about, I think I've already talked about the taking your narrative for your subpoint, let's just say 1.7. I've got it there, but I've got documentation that we talked about on our last episode of this series. But I'm putting that documentation right there with that self-study, so that they're not having to, okay, they say, see this in appendices, 3.7. I want it to be right there. They're supposed to show me this. There it is. Boom. Got it. So that's one of those things. And of course we had that in the digital copy too, because we did screenshots of it, of pretty much everything, or scanned in copies. But then the other thing is I want them to be able to quickly say, oh, I need documentation from 4.3, and to be able to just open that binder right up to 4.3. There it is. So what we did is, along with our standards in the binder, we had, nice white binders. We put our logo on it. We, titled it just like you would. And then we made sure each standard started on a brand new page, so there wasn't any in between pages. And we put those dividers for each subpoint, so that the tabs, I guess, not the dividers, tabs, whatever, so that you could just, without even opening the binder, see, 4.7, that's what I want. Flip it open. There we are. And
it's like those Bibles I had growing up that had the books of the Bible on the side. And those Bibles fell apart faster because you're always snagging those on things. But those were nice.
But
those
the
were
thing
helpful.
is, granted, I've not done a million accreditation reviews, but I've never seen a binder where it was that simple. I mean, it seems more complicated because you're doing more work, in a way. But
between us, we've done
made
10 plus.
The team simple. Right.
Between us, we've done 10 plus, and we've never seen that done before.
Right.
I've never seen that done before. So,
and again, why did we do that? It was because we had served on team, not only the two of us, but two others on our accreditation team that we created for our school. Same thing. They had to dig, they had to search for things, they had to ask so many questions because it wasn't there in the self-study. And we just went through our self-study thinking, as a team member, what am I going to want to see? How am I going to want to interact with this? Obviously, the team is going to be writing their narrative as well. They have got to verify everything. So making it as easy for them when going through our self-study is goal number one. I mean, that's your top priority.
I look forward to the next iteration of the binder. what I mean by that is, I there's probably ways in which there's always ways to improve, right?
Right.
What you wonder, okay, what can we do to make binders obsolete? Because the next thing we're going to do is that strong when we're presenting our accreditation documentation. Like those sorts of things are fun to think about. What is the outside the box idea I can have to say, okay, when they come, this is going to be exceptionally simple for them because you added tabs to a binder. Small, big deal.
Big deal.
And there are also cover sheets in there that said, if you have a question, this is the person we would suggest you go to because this is who has the information. Like those pieces of the presentation, that wrap up of the presentation of all that work reflects well on the work that was done and your desire to see it, made useful. But there's going to be something that comes along that makes binders obsolete. Like, what's that going to be? Is it going to be that we record these long, or they have to be short, because attention spans aren't long, and these people who come don't have a ton of time. But will there be like videos recorded of administration saying, "This is how we feel about our chapter 3." So at the end, there's a QR code to a video, and they can actually watch the team make statements about. Sure. This is how we got to where we are, and if you think it's different, let us know how you think it's different. Like maybe that's a step forward. I don't know. Like it'll be fun to think about that in the forthcoming and to see how to make a binder obsolete.
Yeah. Now I know we're talking primarily about the presentation to the team, but here's one other thought I had in putting our binders together the way we did is, accreditation is a process. It's not just for that one site visit. Once that site visit happens, and you get approval, you're just beginning the next step of the process. You're going to go back to your self-study that you've already created, and you're going to work through it again. And the beauty of these binders with their tabs is I can now create committees for each standard moving forward over the 5-year, 7-year, whatever cycle you guys have. And you can divvy out those standards and say, okay, the committee is going to meet and they're going to pull out that, they're going to go open that binder, pull that tab out of 4.7. They're just going to look at 4.7, the documentation that we have there. Is that still good? Do we need to change it? Does it need improved? We'll improve it, maybe print a few pages out, put that right back in the binder, done for the next site visit. Like that, to me, is awesome because you don't want these self-studies to just simply get boxed up after your site visit, get put on a shelf, and then a year before your next site visit, you pull those, dust them off, and just be like, okay, let's just do it all over again. You don't want to do that. You've taken the time to create that foundation, and now you should just be maintaining for the ongoing years.
And to be honest to the process, you shouldn't do that. The process demands that you're continuing to improve. So that's what we're trying to do. Anything else you're really dying to say about the accreditation, documentation, presentation?
Yeah. The biggest thing is keep it simple. I know accreditation visits that I've had where they gave us a digital file like Google Drive, where yes, the narrative was in there, but all the documentation was separate. That was clunky. I didn't really like that as an accreditation team member. Granted, everything was there, and it didn't really cause me, but I feel like they missed more doing it that way. We even started it just as our collection basis. We had Google Drives for each standards, and as we were finding documents or thinking of documents, throwing those in there. But even then, it became kind of a chore of, is it all here? Or, I thought that was in there. It's not in there. And so it just became complicated. And that's what made us move to put the documentation right in the self-study. Then you absolutely know what you need is there. But
absolutely.
But that's what I just keep it simple if you can. So even we had a personal drive that had everything in it. When the drive that I shared with the team just had that self-study standard. That was pretty much it. Just that PDF. So it also keeps it from them accidentally tweaking things or deleting things. You can just share it again.
Sure.
But just share the PDF, keep that simple. And then when they come, we even did a thing because we knew, who is going to be reviewing each one. So we even put their name, like, Brian, these are yours, on their binders so that they could see what it is. The other thing, I know this isn't self-study so much, but our manuals. So we have administrative manual, faculty manual, school handbook, and athletic manual. So you've got all these different manuals, and what tends to happen in an accreditation site visit is somebody wants a copy of the administrative manual, and maybe you have one of them or two of them in the room. And now, granted, I know administrative manuals can get really bulky.
Sure.
So
kind of depends.
if that's the case, a digital copy would be wonderful because then everybody can access it however they want. But for us, all of our manuals could fit into one of those like 3-inch binders, the really beefy ones. And so we put every manual in them. We made 5 copies. So each member had their own copy. They didn't have to be like, oh, when you're done with that, could I use it?
Yeah.
So again, it's simplicity. That's a little bit extra printing, but it's worth it to make it simple, make it easy for the team.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I don't really have much more to add to that. So let's go on to our Christian Administrator Spotlight. Thanks for walking through us.
So we are shouting out Scott Clemens over at Heartland Christian in Newcastle, Indiana.
All right. So sad story as to how Scott came to be on our radar, but there was a loss at Scott's school. There was a loss of their secondary English teacher recently, tragically, and just suddenly.
Yeah.
And so when we were made aware of it, I reached out to Scott by email. We made sure we sent out a canary envelope with some encouragement in it. And so now we're going to take a moment to pray for Scott there he's the head of school at Heartland Christian School there in Indiana. So Scott, we are thinking of you, and we're going to pray for you and your school body now. And I'm going to pray for you now, Scott, okay? Father in heaven, you do not give us more than we are able to handle through the strength your Son provides. You do not tempt us above that we are able to be tempted. You do not move us in ways in this life that you did not see prior. So we thank you for these known promises, and we thank you for Scott's role. We thank you for who Scott is and what his desire is to serve you there at Heartland Christian School. Lord, in this time of loss, give him clarity as director. In this time of pain, give him an understanding of what the family there needs, of what his students, what his ministry needs to be effective, to mourn, to grow, to take their next step forward. Please give him the peace he needs, the strength he needs, the knowledge he needs, the wisdom he needs in the moment. May he rely on the resources around him or discover new ones that will help him through this process. And Lord, for the family, of course, and for the students and for the faculty and staff, we do pray for peace in their lives as well as they reflect on this loss. You are our good Father, and we praise you for it. Amen.
Our hearts and prayers are with the students, the faculty, the families there at Heartland during this time.
All right.
But that's going to wrap up this series. I hope this series has been helpful, especially if you're a school that's looking to get into accreditation. I know there's a plethora of reasons or excuses that we give to not go through the process, but at the end of the day, even if the accrediting agency says you're not ready, going through the steps, going through the process is going to make you stronger, healthier school.
Absolutely.
So take our advice. It's not the end of the world. It's not the most difficult thing, but it's definitely worth it.
All right. Thanks for growing with us today.
Before you go, please be sure to hit that follow button on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, on Spotify, be sure to tap the star icon near the top and select the number of stars you'd like to give us. We'd be so grateful for 5. On Apple Podcasts, scroll down to the ratings and review section and then tap write a review to share your thoughts of the podcast. Thank you.